Hey guys, this is Mike and welcome to the podcast. On today's podcast, I have two guests. Sam Zeitz, the CEO of Grubber, a company that makes restaurant tech like self-ordering and loyalty technology. And alongside him, we have Carl Goodhue, the CTO of BurgerFi, which is a 120 location burger chain based in Florida that is growing really rapidly. I have him on the podcast because I wanted to hear about the two companies working together and their trials using self-ordering kiosk. They started trialing the kiosk in a few of the chain's locations and saw pretty dramatic results. And what was interesting to me during the conversation is they said that the behavior consumers were different when they were ordering from a cashier or using a self-ordering kiosk. And actually the results were better with the self-ordering kiosk. And I thought that was fascinating. And so we talk about that and why that is. We also talk about the future of restaurant loyalty programs and how over time they become more personalized, as well as lots of other topics in the world of restaurant tech. It was a fun conversation. Just to know, Grubber is a paid sponsor of The Spoon, but I would definitely talk to these guys anyway because the topic about how consumers change behaviors in restaurants with digital tools is fascinating to me. As always, you can find more podcasts at The Spoon or your regular podcast spots. All right, folks, that's it for now. Let's get to the podcast. Hey, well, I am excited to be here with two podcast guests, not one. It's two for the price of one today. We have with us Sam Zeitz, the CEO of Grubber, and we also have with us Carl Goodhue, who is the CTO of BurgerFi. How you guys doing?
Great, thank you.
You guys have been working together. You actually had some news. Sam, can you tell us what you guys announced?
Yeah, we've been working over the last 6 months at a number of BurgerFi locations implementing the kiosk technology, and we released a case study that detailed the results of the performance for those pilots that are now in a rollout. And aside from helping to solve some of the labor issues that are confronting all restaurants, we were able to move 50 to 75% of the in-store orders to kiosk, and we've been able to increase the average ticket by 18.5%. So those are some pretty good numbers for any business.
And just to kind of set context for everyone, how widely deployed were the kiosks? I mean, what was this at kind of a certain small number of trials, Carl, or is this like a pretty broad footprint?
No, we it's a relatively small pilot, 4 locations that ran to the beginning of the year, but now we're at the majority of our corporate stores, finalizing the rollout in the next few weeks here. And then we've got our first franchisees going live with this next week. I was
at a completely different type of store yesterday. I walked into a Happy Lemon with my daughter. It's a boba place in Seattle, and this place is always constantly slow. And so when I saw yesterday, I walked in, they actually had installed a kiosk. I thought, thank goodness, because this is actually going to accelerate it. It can dedicate an employee to actually making the boba drinks or whatever, make it move faster. Can you talk about the impact of putting a kiosk in the restaurant? Does it free up folks to do other stuff? Does it? And you talked a little about the 18% increase in total order size, but yeah. I'm just kind of wondering what the impact is on the business in the given restaurants.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things you mentioned in there that are important. The first is the perception of speed at the front of house. It may take the same amount of time, but because you control that experience as a guest, that is, the time it takes is not perceived to be as long. It does free up labor to work hospitality in the front of house for us. We're not, Sam has a different view of the future of the restaurant space than I think BurgerFi is ready for right now, but we believe that it's freed up that person that used to be stood behind the POS, moved them in front of the POS, moved them in front of the counter, and talk about the CEO burger, the swag burger, hand out samples, do traditional hospitality instead of just having that engaged one-on-one conversation behind the POS that doesn't add that much business value.
Yeah, I think I've seen that as Shake Shack, right? Like Shake Shack, another burger joint, they've had the kiosk there for a while, and they are pretty actively good having someone out there doing that traditional customer service. So it sounds like you guys are kind of similar in the same lines. You're actually having someone engaged, being kind of that almost valet or kind of like more white glove service, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Sam, what are some of the ideas that you want to you see for BurgerFi for the future they're not quite ready for?
Well, today, I think almost all restaurants and many businesses are suffering from the labor crisis, right? The Great Resignation, and many workers aren't coming back for a number of reasons. We can leave those to the side, but the issue is, there's a shortage of employees, and in the short term, or if they don't come back at all, the long term, you need to be able to solve for that. And the kiosk solves half the problem. It solves the front of the house, right? Because if you go completely cashierless, you can put as many kiosks in and you can facilitate those orders. Then you can take those employees that would have been working behind the counter and redeploy them to, in your example, Mike, making the boba tea or making burgers or delivering the burgers, whatever the case is. Right now, there are a number of restaurants that are closed today or have limited hours because they just don't have enough employees. So the first thing that we're doing is we're solving the labor crisis by being able to keep the doors open and redeploy staff to the other integral parts of the business. Carl's absolutely right. If labor were not an issue, then you deploy those people in a concierge manner where they're saying, hey, welcome to BurgerFi. Guess what? We've got this great new burger, great new side. Here's a sample. Try this. They're running out extra. So do you need anything else? They're making sure that the dining room is spotless, et cetera. So you can really amplify the customer experience. But what we're seeing around most brands today is just a massive shortage of labor, which is impacting both the hours and performance of most locations.
Carl, that increase in order size is interesting to me. Like, I'm curious what the psychology of that is. Like, when I'm ordering off the kiosk, I feel like there's a lot more visual information for me. Like, I can't consume a menu that's sitting above the cashier's head that I'm looking at. It's a different type of information, but with a kiosk, I feel like I have a little more opportunity to slowly consume it. It's more visually rich. It's interactive. Why do you think that order size is bigger?
Yeah, Mike, I think you nailed it there. It's 220 inches of televisions above the cashiers that you have to absorb.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right? That's 4 panels. It covers burgers, chicken, hot dogs, desserts, drinks, beer, wine. It's a lot to take in. And if you've been to the restaurant before, maybe you have your order. But what the kiosk does a good job of is merchandising the product. It's all visual, like you mentioned. It's all the pictures are there, and people absorb information in different ways. So maybe the text of the CEO burger, 2 Wagyu patties, aioli sauce, that may not mean a lot to someone who's visually learns. But if you put a nice juicy double stack patty, the best photo that we have, that sells, right? The other thing that I think is happening is our kiosks upsell every single time. So we don't have to train our kiosk to remind them that you need to be asking the guest if they would like a drink or a side. That happens magically or programmatically, I should say. And Sam can talk to a little bit more of the logic that's behind the scenes there, but it is contextual, and if it won't ask you if you want fries if you already have fries and things like that. So it's smart enough to me. Yeah.
And to me, maybe it's a personal thing that upsell coming from a programmatic machine, just, hey, you can also have this on. It's less offensive to me. Not that I'm getting super offended, but like when you have like a cashier pushing the extra fries on you, you feel like, okay, he's getting like his compensation tied to this, or you know what I mean? Whatever, like, I feel like it's less offensive. I'm more willing to probably go with it and not be offended by it.
Yeah, and I agree with you in some ways, but I think that it introduces new product that you may not be aware of, like the onion rings. Maybe you didn't even realize it was on the menu. Whereas I'm like you, I might quickly dismiss it if someone tells me about, hey, did you know we had onion? Yeah, sure. I'm already moving on, right?
Yeah.
I've already got my card in my hand. I'm ready to go. Oh, but if it's visually presented as onion rings on top of a basket of fries, hey, that looks pretty good. Let's just throw that on there.
Yeah, and it's customized, right? So, for years, everybody was trained, hey, you're buying a burger, you want fries with that. But what happens if you're buying a salad? Are you going to take fries? Probably not. But you might be inclined to take, a fruit cup or a healthy drink. So customizing based on the type of order, no different than when you're on Amazon. You buy something and you're presented with a bunch of other options that really resonate with you. Or Netflix, suggestion of additional movies that might resonate with you. So it's doing that same thing. So it's using machine learning and AI to really customize that and provide options that you'll be more inclined to purchase. The other thing is, people buy with their eyes, right? So when Carl was talking about being able to see a high resolution picture versus reading menu items, you're going to buy more. And we have something called the hover effect, right? When you're standing in a long line, you get to the front of it. I'm not going to go up there and go, hey, Mike, what looks good today, right? The guy behind me is going to smack me in the back of the head. I'm going to quickly order it and move on. Versus on the kiosk, I can digest what's going on, and I have control of the ordering experience. I have more empowerment, and that leads to a higher.
There is that, I don't know if it's the ATM effect though. You always feel like the guy behind you is looking at you while you're punching that screen, like you need to hurry a little bit. I don't know how to get around that. It's just what lines are, but I'd be curious to kind of hear what both of you see, how we can see BurgerFi or other consumer interaction experiences around ordering evolving over time. I mean, I think one of the things I'm hearing is we're probably moving towards a little bit more personalization. Yep. And customization, like maybe when I go in there, you already know what my preferences are. Maybe there's some sort of kind of biometric kind of understanding through facial ID or something. Like, I'd be kind of curious to hear from both of you where you see things going.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think you nailed it there. Where with a kiosk, it's much easier to get that loyalty identifier, whether it's phone number, scan a QR code, log in, whatever it might be. That can happen at the beginning of the transaction and influence the rest of the experience. Whereas if you're at a POS, usually asking for loyalty is the last thing you do, or it really complicates and slows down the transaction. Oh, I don't have loyalty. Well, can I sign you up? Well, there's a line of people. I gotta get in and out, and it becomes a whole thing. Whereas on the kiosk, it's much more controllable, and that can result in those folks who ordered this also ordered that, or those Amazon-esque type of experiences where, oh, you bought this, we highly recommend this as a pairing, and it's all automated and personalized to you. And your last order, we already have that. It's your last order is available, so if you always get the same thing, it can be a really quick transaction. If you want to explore and get recommendations, we could do chef pairings with beer offerings. I mean, all of that's a possibility.
Is that happening today, right? If I go in, I punch in my code, maybe it's a phone number, you know that I like bacon cheeseburgers or whatever, I'm just making this up. Are you giving me recommendations, or is that something that you're going to be definitely doing in the future?
I think the platform is evolving. We offer your previous orders. That's there today. So I know Sam and the team are working on the platform to be more AI, ML, and get to that point where it's highly recommended.
Yeah, so take an example. Let's say you have a highly customized burger, right? You're one of these finicky guys that wants in a certain way, and every time you get in, you're going to have to repeat it to the cashier, and chances are, because you're doing it so highly customized, it's probably going to get entered wrong anyway. You put in your loyalty, you show up, boom, I just hit previous order, and you're out, right? It's a very, very quick experience. So that part is good. And we do have the ability now to do that type of customization, but it depends on, every restaurant wants to control that experience, and however they want to control it, we will have the technology to help facilitate what they want to do. Facial rec is something that's possible. We had that technology 3 years ago. It kind of works too well, and it scares some people right now because 3 years ago you would walk up and it would be, "Hi, welcome, Mike. Would you like your usual?" And you're like, "All right." Some people thought it was a little too much, too Big Brother, but clearly the technology's there. I just don't know if the acceptance is quite there yet.
I mean, are we benefiting a little bit from people have kind of gotten accustomed to like just walk out technology with Amazon Go for et cetera. Like maybe that's via like some sort of app scan in or whatever. Are other forms outside of biometric becoming more accepted and consumers are just getting used to it that you guys could benefit from?
Well, I mean, the experience with the loyalty is one way to you're opting in.
Yeah.
So there is no issue there because that's all on an opt-in basis. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I would maybe argue that mainstream, you and I, Mike, and Sam as technologists, I've been to the Amazon Go store. I've experienced that and I understand how it works. I would say mainstream America is not aware that this exists or how to use it or the technology behind it. And I think introducing that into a suburban restaurant location, I envision chaos.
Are you calling me a coastal tech elite, Carl? Is that what you're
I'm calling you a technologist who's a forward thinker. But we take parts of that, right? So to Sam's point, everyone's got a phone in their pocket. Everyone's used to loyalty. I would say that mainstream America is used to Amazon Prime, and they've done a great job training their customer base on how to quickly order and that it's okay to memorize a credit card. So I think there's a lot of things we can take in to our advantage there. BurgerFi can take advantage of that. Restaurants and kiosks can take advantage of that stored credit card. And let's make that as seamless of an experience as possible where customers don't have to think about the payment process. That's the less people have to think about that, the better for everyone.
Yeah, and Mike, you would to finish up I think the start of your question was, what's the future look like in the restaurant? We see that as, the cashier, phasing out and it being a combination of kiosks and mobile ordering and online ordering, whether it's through the company's website or through a third-party delivery service like a DoorDash or an Uber Eats. So that's I don't think kiosks are the end-all be-all one solution, nor do I see mobile or do I see online. I think it's a combination of all three of those because everybody consumes and everybody prefers to order in a different manner. No different than you go to the airport. Years ago, you used to see a ticketing agent. That ticketing agent's gone and has been replaced by either QR codes on your smartphone or a bank of 40 kiosks that never have a wait. So I think you're going to see that similar approach when it comes to at least fast casual and QSR restaurants.
Yeah, I think it's essentially digital omni-channel in a way. You have all these different touch points. Carl, running a restaurant chain from a technology perspective and just thinking about it, like one of the things I've thought a lot about is just the rise of mobile ordering, the rise of delivery, retrofitting that onto existing kind of restaurant chains. Like oftentimes I don't feel like they're necessarily architected to be most efficient to serve these different channels. And I mean, I think we started to see a little bit of evolution as we move toward ghost kitchens, but are you guys thinking about how your restaurant networks are architected as you move towards more digital touch points with consumers? Do you change the way you're building restaurants at some point?
Definitely. And, we are constrained in that the building was built in a certain way and it does not have a drive-through or curbside spots dedicated and different lease arrangements. So there are definitely constraints on the business in that regard. But we're taking things we can control, like the kitchen display system. We're segregating online from in-store orders so that we can make sure our in-store guests who are actually there experience that food in as fast as possible. because in the past, everything just ends up on one monitor, comes out of one printer. And if someone puts a big order in on Uber, that's not distinguishable in the past from someone who's, hey, I just want a junior burger and fries. Like, I can serve that in 5 minutes, but no, they're behind this big Uber order, and we needed to make changes to accommodate that. So those are the kind of actions we're taking so that BurgerFi satisfies the guests everywhere, and we're setting the right expectations because we now understand when that Uber driver is going to arrive, and maybe we can delay the start of frying those fries so that they're crispy when they're picked up. Those are the kind of actions that we're taking. And I think to your point, we'll explore different ways to build the restaurant differently in the future. We're doing that with making sure that kiosks are always thought about. Maybe it's a smaller footprint. I think that BurgerFi is lucky in that we've seen a lot of that in-store traffic return, but that may be different for different restaurants. And so maybe you don't need that bigger footprint. Maybe you don't need that outside patio. Those are things that the brands have to individually decide and determine whether they're going to make that change or not.
Yeah, I mean, you said something earlier, Carl, that I think people are more likely to identify themselves through a kiosk than personally. I mean, you're more likely to engage in a loyalty program through a kiosk than if I was just walking up and saying hi to the cashier, because I'm essentially going to identify myself maybe through some sort of phone number or whatever.
Right.
Have you thought about the future of loyalty programs and how you evolve those? I mean, I'm kind of getting at a little bit, like I've had conversations with Adam Brodmer, for example, with Brightloom, and he sees a big future around loyalty with using Web3 technologies, for example, like NFTs as like a membership token. Have you thought about like the way loyalty programs can go? Have you thought about like Web3 as a component of that?
Yeah, I think there's many different paths we can take. The first is, to me, is the obvious ones where we've already got the infrastructure in place to do tap to pass both loyalty and payment and make that a seamless single transaction. The challenge there is how do you get that up front before you start the transaction process and understand their preferences. So there's a little bit of a challenge to tap and pay to pass through loyalty information. NFTs, we've had conversations, and I think that's an obvious one. But again, that's what 2% of our financial.
It's coastal. It's me being the coastal elite again. Is what you're saying.
So how do we make that mainstream, and how do we do that so that a significant number of our guests can take advantage of it without? There's hurdles in place. Like, do I have to download MetaMask? Do I have to have Coinbase?
You can't have that.
Yeah, I've got to make it so that it's all seamless. But I also don't want to be in the business of KYC. So there's challenges there with blockchain and NFTs. Someone will get there. I think whoever can offer a turnkey solution will make a lot of money in this space, because we don't want to, BurgerFi doesn't necessarily want to be in the business of issuing financial instruments to people. We want to sell burgers and facilitate that using financial instruments that are made available by third parties.
Okay, so you're not going to tokenize your burgers anytime soon, is what I'm hearing.
Maybe we sell it in the metaverse, and pay full premium price for that CEO burger and enjoy it metaphysically.
Sam, have you given thought about the future of loyalty? What are you excited about there?
Yeah, it's going to the customer experience. By putting the loyalty, it's not simply being able to rack up points, but it's being able to know more about your clients so you can provide them with a better experience. No different than Netflix is grabbing all kinds of info on me every time I opt in to watch a movie, and the recommendations for movies going forward are better and better each time. It's because they have that information on me. So you're going to see more and more of that in speeding up that process and being able to recommend things that I just wasn't aware of that would resonate with me. And when Carl and the team come up with a new side or a new dish, I'm going to be made aware of it where, my normal buying experience, I probably would have glossed right over it and never ordered it. So you will see that, and you'll see the establishments being able to use that data to enhance the client experience.
There's some more challenges in the restaurant space that with Uber and DoorDash owning that customer, the fence garden, so to speak, and how do we partner with them, or how does the industry partner with them to make that loyalty experience more inclusive and not just you're a member of Uber One or DashPass and you're a loyalty member of the restaurant, but you can't cross-pollinate. I think those are some of the challenges that the industry needs to solve. I think those are big questions that are unanswered, that if we don't answer them as an industry in 2 years, the customer might still feel like it's a divided environment. And I hope we're not in that place.
Piggybacking on that, I think that whole third-party delivery process, there's a lot of room to streamline and improve that process today. With data going back and forth between the restaurant and the third-party delivery service. So you don't have drivers sitting there for 10, 15 minutes waiting. You don't have consumers whose internal clock when they place the order starts and, an hour later they're wondering where their food is. And, by making that data go both directions, you'll dramatically improve the performance and ultimately the results for the consumer, the driver, and the restaurant.
Hey, well, Sam and Carl, thank you so much for spending time with me today. Where can everyone find out more information about each of you? Sam?
Our website is the best place to reach us. So it's, Grubber.com, GRUBBR.com. And there's plenty of information, case studies, videos, and, we've got a team of people who are happy to walk through any restaurant owner and how we can improve their customer experience.
Carl's at BurgerFi.com. Is it?
Yeah, it's super simple. BurgerFi.com. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. It's been fun.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so that's it for today's show. The Spoon Podcast is hosted and produced by me, Michael Wolf. The podcast is a part of the Spoon Media Network, and if you'd like to connect with us, just head over to the Spoon at thespoon.tech or drop us a line at podcast@thespoon.tech. I want to thank Sam Zeitz of Grubber and Carl Goodhue of BurgerFi for coming on the show. If you haven't already given us a review, please do so in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get podcasts. You probably noticed by now we have talked about it a little bit, but we are heading back to CES to help them with their food tech program. If you are a food tech company and want to be at the world's biggest tech conference and participate in their food tech program, drop us a line. We can help you out. All right, that's it for now. We'll talk to you soon.